So last week when we spoke, we talked about the possible economic policies of Donald Trump if he were returned to the White House, because he had floated the idea of maybe having tariffs replace some or all of income taxes. You were not very enthusiastic about that. Since then, he's responded to you very specifically on a podcast called All In, where they asked him about how he responded to your thoughts on tariffs. And he said he respected you. He gave you nice plaudits that he respects you. You speak your mind, is I think what he said. But at the same time, he really likes tariffs, he said, because it shows the power of a country, both economically and politically. What do you make of his endorsement of tariffs as a major tool of policy?
I don't see the evidence for his belief. First of all, the tariffs he proposes are going to be levied against Canada. They're going to be levied against our traditional European allies. If they are a tool of power and intimidation, it seems to me they should be used much more selectively than he has proposed. Second, when you launch a tax, then others respond and the whole thing can spiral. The classic example of a major tariff policy in American history was Smoot-Hawley, and it contributed to making the Depression great. As I look around the world at countries who have seen tariffs as the center of their economic strategy to make a nationalist point vis-a-vis other countries, the examples look like places like Argentina and a number of places in Latin America where it has not been so successful. So I'd like to see what the case is, but this is a case where it's about as universal among economists who studied these things that you shouldn't pursue systematic across-the-board tariffs for long periods of time. I don't know of almost any respected or reputable economist who disagrees with those kinds of views. It's run counter to really a very strong bipartisan consensus in the United States for 75 years since the Second World War. Of course, you can argue about when we should resist dumping, how a particular trade agreement should be structured, but the Trump widespread enthusiasm for tariffs as a centerpiece of economic strategy, the idea that tariffs will be used as one of the major revenue sources of the country, this is way beyond what has traditionally even fallen within the discourse of discussion. You know, I was one of those economists who thought the Laffer curve, when it was being suggested, was really very unlikely, even nonsensical. But this is a big step way beyond that in terms of radicalism.